a couple people dropping in. Laura, any plans for Halloween?
Thank you for asking. We actually, on Halloween, we're going to probably be sitting tight here at the house. And Morgan, we live literally out in the middle of nowhere. So I think that I'm not anticipating a lot of trick-or-treaters. But, growing up, I had a twin brother and I can remember my mom making us dress the same, and outfits that matched. It was like torture. So Halloween is something that I do enjoy, but I think this Halloween it's going to be a little bit on the quieter side for us. What about you?
So we are the same thing on a dirt road. We generally just turn our lights off because we're out with the kids. But now if the kids
Hmm.
are older, I don't even know if they are gonna go trick-or-treating this year.
Hmm.
But I did hear that we are hosting a big teenage bonfire afterwards. So
Oh,
it
that'll be
sounds like it'll
fun.
be a loud, long night at my house.
Sounds like a ton of fun, though.
Yes, it's
You know,
great. So
absolutely.
so let's see, we're two after. Let's give another 30 seconds or so, and then we'll start jumping in. Ooh, and Stephanie asked, who's here and where's everyone located? I'm up in Michigan. Let's see who else is on. Matt's in Colorado. Do you, going back to Halloween, Laura, do you hand out candy or is there not even a point for it?
We'll have it ready. In fact, I just picked it up from the grocery store, but I think my husband will probably end up eating most of it. So I made certain it was candy that he liked, the
Yep.
different bars, the Twix,
I
those
I heard a
things.
great fun fact the other day. Zero idea if it's true. Most stats are made up. But it was 53% of people that buy Halloween candy have to go back to
Hmm.
the store and rebuy Halloween candy because they eat it before Halloween. Yeah, so
I would probably believe that. It's hard to have candy in the house and
absolutely.
not eat it.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, let's jump in. For those that don't know me, my name is Morgan. Morgan, I have the privilege of serving as TouchPoint here, or excuse me, serving as Vice President here at TouchPoint, if I can talk. Today, we're joined by Laura. Laura is the Executive Director at Integrus. You have spent your career doing kingdom-minded ministry, coaching leaders from all over the
Mhm.
country. Um, you were telling me that you spent 14 years at senior leadership at Joni and Friends. I'm not overly
Mhm.
familiar with Joni and Friends, Laura. What's that org do?
Yeah, thank you for asking, Morgan. Johnny and Friends is actually based in Los
Johnny,
Angeles.
excuse me.
Yeah, everybody says Joni, and that's how it's
Okay.
spelled. But Johnny Erickson Tata started it back in 1979 when she broke her neck. She's a quadriplegic, and she was traveling with Billy Graham crusades.
Oh, okay.
And basically became known through the Billy Graham crusades, and people started writing to her, talking about disability and hope. And she started this nonprofit, and they have grown to where now we serve 56 different countries, people living with disabilities around the world. And
That's
it's
awesome.
all about sharing the gospel and helping people with disabilities.
That's great.
Yeah.
And you live in Florida, have four kids.
Mhm.
You're a huge FSU fan, but you made me promise not to ask you about that. You know,
We're,
I,
we're
we're
not
not
talking
talking
about
about
that
that
at
right
this
now,
point.
hey? But for those that are for those that are not familiar with Integris, make sure you tune in, set that phone down.
Mhm.
Many of us here at TouchPoint have used our friends over there for executive and leadership training. They're not only incredible coaches, but also just salt of the earth people that love the local church and Jesus. So
Mhm.
I'm excited for the
Yep,
next little bit here with you, Laura. Um,
absolutely.
and we are going to try to save a couple minutes at the end. for some questions. So if anybody has questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we will try to get to them at the end. So with that, Laura, what are we chatting about today?
We are so excited because we have a new book out by our president, Lyle Wells, and Kat Armstrong called Easy to Follow. And it's all about servant leadership and how Jesus led and how Jesus was a leader that was easy to follow. So I think for all of us, and even at Integrus, we want to be leaders that are easy to follow, not hard to follow. And while I love how Lyle Wells and Kat Armstrong outlaid, they basically gave the 6 different behavioral characteristics of Jesus Christ. And I believe we have them here, is talking about clearly defined his mission. Jesus Christ clearly defined his mission. He taught his methods. He didn't just tell people how to do things and dictate it. He mentored. Think about how he mentored the disciples. He didn't manage them. He practiced uncommon compassion. He clarified his expectations and he cultivated generosity. And while I would love for us to be able to dive into all 6 today, Morgan, I know we're probably going to get to 2, maybe 3 during our time together. And so we'll be able to take a look at 2 or 3 of these, and we'll be able to share how at Integrus Leadership, how those factor into our behavioral assessment. And then we'll be able to give you insanely practical, and I do mean insanely practical tools that you could do today that could help you emulate the behaviors of Jesus Christ.
Love it. And Laura, I have about 20 minutes left in the book, so I've been loving it, excited to finish it. I'm at the tail end. So one of the first things you mentioned there is clarity. And so how did Jesus demonstrate clarity as a key leadership behavior?
Yeah. What we found is that with clarity, one of the assessments that we do at Integrus is well-being. And the reason that well-being is associated with clarity is this. What we do know is that when anxiety goes up and well-being basically measures anxiety, that productivity goes down. So what is that antidote to anxiety? It's clarity. And Jesus was amazing at being crystal clear on clarity. Throughout the Gospels, we see that Jesus, he modeled perfect clarity for us from 3 different dimensions. First was his mission. In Luke 19:10, it says he came to seek and save the lost. That was his mission, and he did it with clarity. Seek and save the lost, seek and save the lost. So, as leaders, we say, okay, what's that leadership principle for us if we want to be servant leaders? Well, let's be explicitly clear on our mission and our vision. And then the second dimension really is the method. What we found is that, in scripture, Matthew 4:19, it says, his method, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. So again, he was incredibly clear on the method. So as leaders, our principle should be to define the path, not just the outcome. And so we need to be able to provide clarity on the path and the outcome. And then that third dimension of motive. We all know why Jesus came to earth. The Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve and to ultimately give up his life for all of us. And so as leaders, we need to make certain that we are crystal clear on the why behind the what, so that we can have clarity in those 3 dimensions of mission, method, and also motive. Very much like Jesus. And Morgan, we have seen this, we witnessed this over and over again, having, coached thousands of executives, that even without clarity, even compassionate and capable leaders will be confusing, inconsistent, and quite frankly, hard to follow. So we need that clarity.
No, we've all worked with a couple of those.
Yes, if you've worked long enough in the workforce, unfortunately, you'll probably, have that experience of what is it like to follow a hard to follow leader. And it is hard. We all want easy to follow leaders for sure.
Absolutely. So the next,
and if you don't mind, Morgan, real quick before we go on,
Absolutely.
because what I love on the screen is this. I want to challenge all the leaders that are with us. If you are wanting to know, do I provide clarity as a leader to my team? And this goes beyond your professional life. This can be in your personal life as well. Ask yourself these questions. How clear and compelling is my mission and communication of purpose? Do the people I leave understand the why we're doing what we're doing, not just what we're doing? And then are my next steps, expectations, my outcomes clearly defined? Because as Lyle Wells says, people don't need their leaders be perfect. We need them to be clear. So these are a
Yes.
couple questions you should be asking yourself as a leader to see, am I providing clarity for others?
I know that's what I often struggle with is, the why. We all get wrapped
Mm-hmm,
up and you have to remember to go back and say the why
mm-hmm.
more often than you feel like you should, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And the what we have found through research, the younger generations, they want to know the why. Why
Yes.
am I doing this? And so the more you can explain the why behind the what and the outcomes, I think the greater influence you'll be able to have as a leader, definitely.
Awesome. So the next one we were chatting about
Mhm.
on your
Yeah,
oh,
I think this is one of the tools, actually, Morgan. When we talk about insanely practical tools, and this is an
yep.
insanely practical one that you can use in any interaction, and it's called the guide model. We do it here at Integrus. We actually did it at Johnny and Friends when I was with Johnny and Friends as well. And what this is it's simple. Take the word guide, GUIDE, and as you go through any type of interaction, meeting, even at your dinner table, take time to get connected. Because, if you think about it, if your kid sits down and the first thing you say is, what was the grade on the algebra test? They're probably going to shut down on you. You need to spend that time developing that rapport. The same with meetings. If we start a meeting and say, okay, give me an update, and you don't spend that time to get connected, then it's much harder for the rest of the meeting. We love doing fun get connects and we spread it out among all the different, team members. In fact, yesterday we had a marketing strategy meeting. And so as we're talking about marketing and strategy, our Get Connect was, what was one of your favorite commercials of all times? And you start reliving your whole life in those favorite commercials. I have to say the progressive commercials came up a lot. A lot of people love the funny progressive commercials these days. And it kind of helps level set everybody. Everybody gets in a good mood. And then you're able to jump into the business after you've made that connection. So the G, get connected. The
Love
U
it.
is understanding the needs. Make certain you fully understand the needs of your team members and your colleagues. And everybody brings their needs to the meeting. And then I is invest in meeting those needs. Because if you want to build credibility as a leader, first, understand the needs, but second, meet the needs. That's what Jesus did. He understood their needs and he met their needs, and that will help build credibility. In fact, I love it in the scripture where Jesus, people would say, would you heal me? Or would you raise the dead? He knew what they were going to ask, but he would ask them anyway, what do you want from me? Because he knew if I know the need and I meet the need, I can build credibility. And
Yeah.
so at GUI, the D, determine the next steps. And this is so important to figure out who is doing what by when so that you have clarity on next steps, expectations, timeline. And then the E is end well. Be it that you close in prayer, devotion, a success story, an impact story, a partner story, you want everyone leaving on a positive note. So the first insanely practical tool is the guide model. And, we even put the QR code here. If you're interested in getting a copy or learning more about the guide model, please feel free to go ahead and scan that QR code. The second tool really comes from this book, and I keep this here on my desk, this easy to follow book, and I keep actually the little tab here, because on page 28, it helps you build your own mission statement. How many of us on this webinar have stopped, really invested and built our own mission statement? What is our purpose? What is our desire, our mission for being here on earth, and being intentional about it and being relentlessly committed to it? So on page 28 of the Easy to Follow, it takes you through a step-by-step. It asks you questions. It helps you craft it. It helps you think through it, those type of things. I love that. And I think I encourage everybody, if you don't have a mission statement, go to page 28 and create and craft your own mission statement. Be very clear about what is your mission here while you're here on earth. And then the third thing is also from the Easy to Follow book, and that is each chapter. After each chapter, it ends with a set of questions, and there are 3 sets of questions. The first one is personal reflective questions for yourself, so you can be reflective about your own leadership. The second is a set of questions about team discussions that you can take your team through. And then the third are invitational questions for feedback. If you want to hear how is your leadership impacting others from these different perspectives, ask these invitational questions, and they're great for feedback. So those are just three different tools that if you're interested in really working on clarity, building some trust, that you can implement today.
I love it, and I've really been enjoying those questions during the book. They're really good and really thought out. And I'm actually excited for the personal mission statement. I did one years and years ago, but who knows what it was or what I said. And so while I've been going through this book, I was actually just talking to my wife about it. And so we want to sit down and do a family mission statement again. And this is what prompted me to want to do that. So been enjoying
I think that's fantastic too, to do a family mission statement. How powerful is that? That your kids know, what is important to you? What is your mission? Why are you here?
Absolutely.
I love that.
The next thing we were going to talk about, Laura, is on the list was encouragement. And this is another one I'll just say, I could definitely get better at. I think a lot of people could, but it's one of my weaker areas, I think. So it was making me think, can a leader build influence without encouragement?
Really good question. I think when we talk about influence, you're going to have direct influence and you're going to have indirect influence. You can have positional influence. Morgan, if your president came in today and said, Morgan, I really need your help on Saturday, mission critical for the organization. And even if you didn't want to, you had plans that you were going to go do another bonfire on Saturday, you would come in. It's positional influence, right? But what Jesus had was more of relational influence, that indirect influence. And if you want to have indirect influence, you need encouragement. Because what we do know to be true is this: even if your timing and your tone is perfect, people will not hear your truth if they feel you don't care about them. People need to know that you care about them as a person. Encouragement is one of the greatest gifts you could give to anybody today. People need to be encouraged. And so with encouragement, it's not do you care? And when we measure it on our behavioral assessment, it's not measuring do you care? We know that you care. What is your natural need to express? And express is the key word there. Express that you care, and to be nurturing and supportive, because Jesus, he spoke life into people before he sent them with purpose. And that's what the Easy to Follow book, said. And that is so true. They knew that he loved them and he was willing to follow them, because with indirect influence, when people know that you care, not only if you know that your president really cares about you as a person, not only are you going to show up Saturday for that to help him with that, but you're going to go by and get the breakfast burritos on the way because you know that he cares. It's like I'll swim across the Atlantic for you. And encouragement. I once heard that encouragement is clarity with warmth and direction wrapped in dignity. And I loved that because it's like the oxygen for our fellowship. And so encouragement, it will transform leadership from pressure to presence. And so is it essential for influence in a relational impact and indirect influence? Absolutely. It's going to be very, very hard to have any influence because people need to know that you care. And, if you're a leader, you're wondering, am I a little on the lower end of the scale when it comes to encouragement or on the higher end, right? Then ask yourself, do people feel more confident in who they are and whose they are after spending time with me? And ask yourself, do I encourage others only when they perform well, which would be a transactional aspect, or when they simply need hope, which is a relational aspect of it. And so, if you're a leader who needs to build a little bit more on that encouragement, and we all do, we all can lean in a little bit more to this encouragement. One of our tools that we share with leaders, and it's insanely practical and so simple, it's the 3 A's. Calendar, literally the 3 A's, the last 30 minutes of your day. If this is something you need to do, that's acknowledge, appreciate, and affirm. And acknowledging, it's acknowledging hard work. When a leader meets, they know that they're seen and that they're valued when you actually acknowledge it. And, saying thank you could be the most important thing you say to someone today. Because people need to hear it. People matter. And affirming a specific comment regarding a person's character, their performance, or even their both will really go to build that relational equity with that particular relationship. They'll know that you care. So we call them the 3 A's. And what is so much fun is when we do trainings, and if you've ever been a part of your training, you'll know this. This is the only time we'll say, we need you to take out your phones. And we'll ask them to take out their cell phones, right? Because all of us, I know, have 2 people right now that we could either appreciate, acknowledge, or affirm we need to appreciate that they stayed late last night to get that report done. And boy, do we appreciate it. It could be personal. You may need to thank your spouse for taking out the trash or something, and those type of things. But there are 2 people in all of our lives that we could appreciate, acknowledge, or affirm. And we say, okay, we want you to stop and take the next 5 minutes and text those 2 people. Now, we know we're in trouble if we see someone just scrolling through all of their contacts. We're like, okay, we might need to help them a little bit more if they're just scrolling through their contacts. And then, we tell them, hey, look, when you look at your phone after this training, if you have responses along the lines of, are you okay? Did you intend to send this to me? Should I be concerned? You probably should build in acknowledging, appreciating, and affirm into your regular schedule a little bit more than you do.
Is this the wrong number?
That's right.
I love that.
The first time I ever did that, I did that to one of my kids. She actually works in New York City, Wall Street, and she literally was like, "Are you feeling okay, Mom?" I'm like, "Oh, I need to work on it here." And so,
is everything okay?
That's right. And so that is an easy one. And calendar the last 30 minutes. What will happen is people will say to me, I feel like it's the imposter syndrome. It's not me. I tend to be more business. It is you. You do care about people. You're just not comfortable and used to a behavior of expressing that you care. But when you start doing it, it'll become more comfortable. It's just like public speaking. The more we do it, the more comfortable. And yes, that is who we are. So definitely practice the 3 A's. The second tool that we will do is what's called the mayor walk. And this is where, if you are in office, get up, just go around, greet your team, make connections. It'll help build credibility and influence. Just walk around. And this is not a time where you give out tasks or you follow up on tasks. This is the time to ask them, how are you doing? No, how are you really doing? And if you go around and every time you get I'm fine, I'm good, I'm fine, I'm good, well, then you need to get better at the questions. Ask them then, instead of how are you doing, say, hey, tell me, what's your greatest challenge that you're working on today? Their response will tell you kind of where they are mentally and how they're doing that day. So get really great at the inquisitive questions with the mayor walk. And again, at the end of each chapter, we've got those reflective questions for you as an individual, for the team, and invitational questions to get feedback on your particular leadership.
Any advice on how to do that in a more remote setting?
Mm-hmm. Sure. You know what? In a remote setting, I would say either schedule those, just get connect times where you spend 15 minutes. Let's do a 30-minute coffee chat, right? Or let's have lunch together over Zoom. As much as you can see the person, it's better than just simply a phone call, a text. A text is something that doesn't convey emotions. And a lot of times we know this, 70% of what people are telling you is nonverbal. So you could be sending me a text saying, I'm great, I'm having a great day. But if I see you and I see that you're not having a great day, hey, is there anything I can help you with? Is there anything I can do for you? It's, try to connect where you can visually see people, whatever, Zoom, Teams, whatever, you typically do, FaceTime. The other thing is, be intentional about, once you find out that somebody's having a birthday, their daughter's getting married, their son's starting kindergarten, their whatever, Morgan's having a bonfire, hey, how was the bonfire, and really connect with people on a personal level.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see, what time is it? We got 3:30. Value of time. Can you explain that one to me a little bit more?
Sure, absolutely. And I'm glad that we had the time to talk about value of time.
Exactly. There we go. That's why I looked first.
So you value time. So that was awesome. Value of time, it relates to what is that internal clock for you? What is your pace? People that have a high value of time have a higher level of intensity and an urgency with time. People that have a lower value, it's not that they're lazy, it's just that they're more relaxed, more easygoing. And depending on your role, that's important. Because if you think about it, if you have a marriage therapist, if you have a psychologist that has a really high value of time, really intense, high sense of urgency, people coming in that are wanting to talk about all the details of their life, and they're like, hey, I want you to bullet point and bottom line it for me because I got things to do. It's not necessarily a good, a good thing. And so with value of time, what we find is that people do not treat their time the same way they treat their money. We know we have a finite amount of money, or on my budget, I know I do. And so with that, what do we do in our bank account? We're gonna spend our money first on our fixed expenses, mortgage, utilities, etc., and then we'll buy the new set of shoes. Right? With time, we don't seem to treat our time the same as money. Time is finite too. I love it when people say, "I'll just make more time." Well, I don't know how you're going to do that, but because we all have 24 hours in the day. So what we have to do as leaders, we have to make certain that we are intentional with our time. Make certain that at the beginning of the day, those high value activities, those high priorities that you need to make certain happen before you go to the low value activities. Because with time, you only have 24 hours in the day. And what we know is influential leaders tend to have a higher value of time. They recognize I've got way more to accomplish than I have time to accomplish it. So I need to stay focused on those top priorities, those high value activities. So, if you're a leader and you're saying, am I someone who values time and utilizes my time, stewards it well? Ask yourself, am I managing my time as a steward of God's mission or as a slave to my schedule? Because God has given us, in fact, if you're breathing, God has still a mission for you to accomplish right now. And we want to make certain we're stewarding whatever time we have left here to accomplish his mission. And then the second question you can ask is, do people that I lead feel hurried by me or helped by me? Because not only are you stewarding your time, but you tend to steward your team's time if you're leading others. And so these are two questions that you can ask. And, again, we love insanely practical tools at Integrus. And so one of the insanely practical tools with value of time is this high value versus low value activity. And we will ask leaders, take a sheet of paper, draw a line down the middle of it. I mean, this is really simple, but it's very practical and it's very insightful. Put high value and low value. Under high value, think of those things that only you can and should do. If I'm a leader of people, I can and should invest in their success, giving them the resources that they need, so forth. A low value activity would be checking social media every 30 minutes. I shouldn't be doing that. And so we all have high value and low value activities. Make a list. Make certain that each day you are intentional on the high value activities. And then you can do the low value, but make certain the high value is first. And it'll depend on your role and responsibility. It's important to know that whatever is a low value activity for you may be somebody else's high value activity. That's great. That's when you have a team that's really working and functioning and everybody's in the right seat, moving on, right seat on the bus, going in the same direction. And so the high value, low value activity. And with that, again, we talked about money. So we do financial audits. I'm a recovering CFO. I went through so many audits and what do? We audit every single thing. Was it spent well? Was it recorded well? Why don't we do it with our time? Do a time audit. When we hear CEOs or presidents that say, I just don't have time. Okay, great. We're going to do a very laborious thing. We're going to audit every single thing that you do and write it down for a couple of days. It is laborious and you will just want to pull your hair out, but it is so insightful. What happens is after the end of about 3 days, look and see where all of your time is going. And I think you're going to see some time killers in there, checking social, checking email too much, those type of things. Do a time audit. And those things that you need that are low value, automate, delegate, eliminate. Automate, delegate, eliminate, right? And make certain that you do that as well. And then again, we have at the end of each chapter some insightful questions about how just to steward well all of the resources in your life, including time that God has given you.
Love that. When you were talking about, comparing time, we need to start treating time like we do money. I started thinking of, we need a Dave Ramsey for time here, right?
Yeah, that's right.
How do we find that more time? We got to cut out the little stuff.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So as we have a couple more minutes here, Laura, I did get a couple questions here, and
Sure.
Let's see. Can you give us an example of how a leader can build clarity with their team?
Sure. Clarity. You need to identify their role, their responsibilities for each team member. And this comes down to something as simple as job descriptions. Make certain that they know exactly what is expected out of them. And then when it comes to their responsibilities, how are they being measured on the success? Ask your team member, do you know what a win looks like? How do you know if you're successful? And start soliciting that from them. If they don't know what a win looks like, then you need to spend the time to explain them, okay, this is what a win looks like in your role on our team and our organization. And a lot of times it's just it's having those great questions to start pulling out from that individual in their mind. What do they believe is their job? Are the expectations? How are they being measured by success? And then are they being seen as someone who is fitting within the culture? And those are questions that a lot of leaders don't ask about. When it comes to culture, are they someone who's building relationships based on trust and respect, honoring God in everything that they do? And you might even ask them, one of our values, and I'm reflecting back to some values that I had we had at Johnny and Friends, building relationships based on trust and respect. Tell me what that looks like for you as a team member on our team. Those type of things, but you're going to have to communicate 360 is what you're going to have to do. And then make certain that you are doing what you say you're going to do, when you're going to do it, how you're going to do it, and over communicate every single time.
Over communicate. Yes.
Yep. Absolutely. Great question.
I have one more here, and then if anybody else has any, please feel free to put them in. This one says, everyone feels so busy all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Can you touch on urgency in Christ-like leadership?
Sure. What we know about Jesus is that he wasn't rushed, but he was intentional. Even the scripture tells us that he rested and he got up early because he knew he only had so much time, right? And so as leaders, we need to be like Jesus and to steward well the time that God has given us. That doesn't mean that we're rushed, busy. What it means is that we are intentional. There's a difference between being intentional and just being busy. You've got to make certain that whatever time you are given, whatever time during the day that you're working on those high value activities, that you are staying conscious of the time, making certain that they're getting done, not spending too much time on it. But that doesn't mean that you have to be constantly busy. And so part of your high value activity could be carving out time for critical thinking, which may seem like you're not busy because you're sitting there doing critical thinking. You're not actually doing an activity. I'm not on the phone with a partner. I'm not in the middle of a coaching session, but I am critically thinking so that I can be smart with the time that I am going to utilize in that coaching session. Because I think that busyness is something that we've all become very accustomed to. And, I love social media, but I also think social media has made us to where we feel like we're constantly connected with some sort of something, right? Just doing something. I'm either scrolling or I'm watching a YouTube or I'm doing this. Even Jesus at times went and sat in silence to be with his Father. Silence is a good thing when we can sit and just have conversations with Jesus and
Amen.
let him speak into our life.
Love it.
Mm-hmm.
We have one more question here.
Okay.
I really like this. It's coming from somebody who says, I'm not a leader on the team. But knows that there's support needed with their leaders.
Mm-hmm.
How do you approach that subject?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I want to encourage you that yes, you are a leader. Everyone is a leader. If you are part of a volunteer team, if you're part of a church committee, if you even help in the children's ministry, you're leading the children during the children's ministry. All of us lead at times in our life. And as a leader, there are some things that you can do when it comes to seeing maybe some ideas or deficiencies in your team where you could bring about clarity. Perhaps it's the guide model. You know, on your one-on-one with your supervisor, you might want to say, "Hey, I was part of this webinar that was really neat part of TouchPoint, and I heard about this guide model on how to do meetings, and I really think that it might help us because it'll bring clarity and you know we'll be able to invest in our needs." And so I just want to put it on the table as a suggestion of something we could do. It's called leveling up, right? You're leveling up here, but all of us, no matter what part of team we're on, we can bring ideas to our bosses. In fact, I think it's great when team members bring great ideas that we can implement as a team that make us better, because you'll be able to see things on the team at your level that maybe is a blind spot for a leader. And
100%.
so I would just say level up. You know, think of ideas, guide model, different things that you could share in a very positive, you know, helpful way to be able to say, "Hey, is this something we could consider?"
Love it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Laura, thank you as always. And you know, what are, you know, if somebody wants to get in touch.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You know what? I think we have a slide here that's going to have my colleague Brent Minogue is an easy to follow leader. Love
Love
him.
Brent.
He's amazing. Yes, and just so smart. And right here on the screen, you'll see the QR code that you can use to schedule time with Brent. If you want to just email him directly, it's really simple. It's brent@integrus.org. He's been with our organization for years and really just a tremendous, tremendous Christian leader. So connect with Brent. We would love to hear from you and help you in any way that we can.
Such a good guy. And for
Mm-hmm.
those that were at Summit, he came and hung out with us at Summit this year. So,
Mm-hmm.
but Laura,
Um,
thank you so much. Thanks for hanging out with us
Thank you.
and sharing all the knowledge. It's really appreciated.
Well, thank you, Morgan. And thank you guys for being servant leaders and leading like Jesus and just being a great example for all of us. We appreciate you guys.
Same to you. Everyone, enjoy the rest of the week. Take care. Bye now.